From colored to FBA. How Black American identity changed over 200 years. Before hashtags, before census boxes, before debates about an identity, Black Americans were called names they did not choose. Our identity, something deeply personal today, was once assigned by law, enforced by society, and shaped by survival. This is the story of how identity labels among Black Americans transformed from the 1800s to today, and how each generation redefined itself in response to history. In the early 19th century, most Black people in America did not control how they were identified. The dominant labels were simple and restrictive: African, colored, slave. But these were not cultural identities. They were classifications. As you may or may not know, American society used labels to separate people legally and socially. Identity existed inside a rigid racial system designed to rank human beings. But even during slavery, Black communities began shaping identity for themselves. In 1816, free Black worshipers founded the African Methodist Episcopal Church, one of the first institutions where Black Americans publicly claimed African heritage with pride instead of shame. For the first time, identity became connected to community ownership rather than oppression alone. After the Civil War, freedom introduced a new question. If slavery defined who you were before, then who are you now? During Reconstruction, the term Negro emerged as the dominant formal identity. Unlike earlier labels, many Black leaders embraced it as a mark of dignity and intellectual presence. Educator Booker T. Washington promoted economic progress and self-reliance, while scholar W.E.B. Du Bois argued for higher education and political rights. Though they disagreed on strategy, both helped transform identity into something new. Not property, not caste, but people striving towards citizenship. Hoping identity will now be centered on respectability, education, and advancement. In the 1920s, identity shifted again, this time through art. During the Harlem Renaissance, it turned Black identity into a global cultural force, where writers, musicians, and painters reimagined what it meant to be Black in America. The sound of jazz rhythms echoed through Harlem nights. Poetry celebrated Black beauty. Fashion rejected European standards. For the first time, identity was expressed creatively instead of defensively. Black Americans were no longer just fighting stereotypes, they were defining aesthetics, culture, and modern expression itself. Identity became artistic power. By the mid-20th century, another transformation began. The civil rights movement demanded legal equality, but it also reshaped language. Leaders like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of moral citizenship and national belonging. At the same time, voices such as Malcolm X challenged Americans to rethink identity beyond integration. Young activists began rejecting the word Negro, which many associated with segregation-era expectations. Then a new word emerged: Black. It was short, direct, powerful. The phrase, "Black is beautiful," transformed identity into self-acceptance, celebrating natural hair, darker skin tones, and African heritage. Identity was no longer about fitting into society. It was about redefining it. As movements grew more assertive, identity evolved again. Organizations like the Black Panther Party emphasized community control, education, and self-defense. The term Black American gained popularity. This identity balanced two ideas: pride in Blackness belonging within America, Afros, African-inspired clothing, and new naming traditions reflected a search for historical roots that slavery had attempted to erase. Identity became political consciousness. In the late 1980s, another shift appeared, quieter but lasting. Civil rights leader Jesse Jackson encouraged widespread use of the term African American. This idea was simple but profound. As other Americans identified through ancestry, Italian American, Irish American, Mexican American, why not African American? The label connected Black identity to heritage and lineage, not just race. By the 1990s, it became the standard term in schools, media, and government documents. Our identity now emphasized historical roots and cultural continuity. As we enter the 21st century, Immigration reshaped the black population in the United States. New communities arrived from Nigeria, Ethiopia, Jamaica, Haiti, and many other nations. Black America became more internationally diverse than ever before. When this happened, identity conversations expanded. Was Black identity cultural, national, ancestral, global? Many embraced shared experiences across the African diaspora, blending traditions and perspectives. Identity became multicultural. As we transitioned into the digital age, identity debates moved online. Genealogy websites, DNA testing, and social media discussions encouraged people to examine ancestry in new ways. Terms like FBA, Foundational Black American, and ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, entered public conversation. Unlike earlier labels focused on race or culture, these emphasized historical lineage tied specifically to U.S. slavery. Technology made ancestry visible in ways previous generations never imagined. Identity became historical analysis. Across 2 centuries, Black American identity has never stood still. It moved from labels imposed by society to identities shaped by resistance to expressions of pride, to rediscovered heritage to conversations about ancestry and history. Each generation asked a different question. Who are we? Where do we belong? What does our history mean today? And each generation answered differently. Identity was never just a word. It was a mirror reflecting freedom, struggle, creativity, and self-definition. And the story is still being written. Because identity isn't fixed in the past. It evolves with every generation brave enough to define itself. So which identity label do you think shaped history the most? Comment below. For more Black history stories like this, please like and subscribe.